In this video, I'm making dumb ways to die realistic. I got this idea from my friend Micah, his channel is in description. I'm gonna do these for death, starting with this one.
Nice.
We're gonna start things up with a nice photo of space and Earth taken by NASA. I'm just gonna remove this astronaut, and I also want to add some stars so that it looks less empty. Next I want to make the helmet, so I'm going to cut one out and still this little piece. For the upper part, I'll use a snow globe and then apply some reflections from a sphere on top of it. To make the suit, we're going to be able to reuse the same part of the helmet and then import a photo of an astronaut floating. I'm going to cut out his body and warp it to match the beam. I trace the body and mask the suit, but I'll go and refine the mask in order to include these elements on top of the suit. It's going to make it look a lot more realistic. Now, since the light seems to be coming from the left, I'm gonna add some shadows to the suit and the helmet. The legs are somewhat of the same process. I cut one out from the astronaut, warp it in place, add the foot, and repeat this for the right leg before adding shadows. For the arm, I actually got another photo to get it at the right angle. So I cut it out and warped it, and then did the same thing for the other arm. But the lighting and texture aren't matching at all. So I duplicated the second arm and applied it as overlay on the other one. Next, I'm tracing the cable with my pen tool and filling the path. I'm gonna add a shadow and some highlights on it. It looks surprisingly good.
Nice job, team.
Astronauts usually have a flag on their left shoulder, so I added one to our little character. Now is the part you've all been waiting for, suspicious red liquid time. I'm gonna import some red liquid explosion and warp it in a way that looks closer to the original. Then I'll mask out the beats that don't really make sense and generally try to make it look like it's coming out of the spacesuit. Light is pretty harsh in space, so even blood needs some shadows. I'm also going to apply a level adjustment layer to bring the brightness down a little bit. You probably noticed that we're missing the eyes. I found this 3D model and I'm going to take a screenshot of it at different angles to match the original. Now I can just place them properly and add some much needed shadows. I think this is missing something, so I'm going to look for bone fragments and cut out the jaw as well as another piece of bone, before making it darker and adding some shadows. This will make it look like his head actually imploded. And with this gross detail out of the way, we can apply a nice camera raw filter. The second death is this one. I think it's kind of funny, and jellyfishes look pretty cool. First, let's import that beautiful ocean and layer the reference over it. Then I'm going to import the skin texture and warp it to make our character. It just needs some masking. Then I'm gonna cut out the ribcage of a skeleton and warp it in place. I'll do the same for the arms and then cut out this really pretty jellyfish. I'm just going to have to adjust its angle by warping it. I have another jellyfish image that I'm going to get these tentacles from and warp them around so that they look like the original death. I'll also get another tentacle from a third photo and warp them around the character. These also need some color correction to match with the others. I know this whole thing looks pretty bad now, but let's add some of that Photoshop magic. First, let's color match the skin to the water. Then we're going to play with the blending modes of the skeleton to make it look X-rayed, and with the one of the jellyfish to make it glow. I'm also going to add some shadows, and I'm really just guessing here, but I'll pretend the only light source is coming from the top. Now I want to make our jellyfish look electric, so we're gonna add some lightnings inside of it. I'm just gonna need to warp them nicely. I'm also going to wrap lightings around the bones of my character to really emphasize the fact that he's getting electrocuted. And that's a pretty long process. Now I'm going to add some highlights, but also his last breath of life floating away to the surface. Lastly, let's add a camera filter, making sure to mask the jellyfish to really make it glow. Our third death takes us to London. I think this is Big Ben. This one is gonna be tough because I can't just slap a photo of Big Ben and be done with it. So let's assemble it piece by piece. First a sky, and then I'm taking the center of this alarm clock and placing it in the right spot. I got this close-up of Big Ben, and I'm going to cut out only the square part and warp it in place. I'm also gonna use this photo and cut out part of the wall. I'm trying not to pick up too many details, because the style we're trying to realistify is super simplistic. I'll stretch it out, duplicate it, and get rid of the part on top. I can just duplicate it and add some of these to connect my walls. Now I'm gonna cut out the windows without any of this fancy stuff and align them with the reference. To make the floor beneath them, I cut out a random bit of wall and stretch it all the way out. I completed this section with another piece of wall. The roof was way easier. I just cut it out with straight line and positioned it. I got a parachute and aligned it with the original. Then I just drew the ropes, and I got them similar style. After all of this, I just traced the original hands of the clock and removed the other ones. Now you might have noticed that this looks like trash, so let's color match everything. And I guess some shadows could help. Now this really made a difference. Let's trace the body and mask away some of the clock's hand. We can add some texture to the guy and the helmet, and I guess I could use some highlights and a drop shadow. The parachute is a little flat, so some shadows could help it as well. I'm just gonna warp the antler in place and shade them. I know you've been waiting for this.
I'ma give you what you want.
I got a red liquid splatter and changed its blending mode. I also got some on the clock's hand. The sky is a bit too vibrant, so let's replace it with a grey cloudy sky instead. And that's it. Our last desk is pretty gross. Anyways, I imported a pillow and warped it in place. I also got a overhead photo of a bed and took the bed sheets from there. I color corrected them and added some shadows. I found this photo for the blanket and it might seem like a strange choice, but I swear it's gonna add volumes and texture. We just gotta warp it. Oh, and I guess it needs to be blue as well. Now these characters are called beans. So I thought I could just make it out of an actual bean.
What?
I warped it up and masked it out before adding some shadows. I think the pillow could also use some folds, so I did those. And now we need to make the face. I cut off the eye and then some teeth. And obviously it needed some color correction, but also some shadows. Then I got a thermometer, cut it out and changed its color to match the original. I completely warped its perspective and masked away the lower part. I know you want to see it, a red puddle on the pillow. I actually got a photo of red liquid on fabric, so it looks realistic. Then I warped some more liquid to go down his cheek, and some more drops going towards his mouth. At this point, I'm just going to add shadows. A lot of shadows actually. And finally, we can import some drops for the fever sweat and a camera raw filter. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider subscribing to my channel. And if you want to see more, you can watch this video where I made famous cartoons realistic.